Cool. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tell Me Darling. I am your host Jess, and this is Big Phil.
Big Phil today, hey?
Big Phil today. We are back with part 2 of the Sophie Toscan Du Plantier case. So no intro today. You don't need it. We heard it last week.
Just straight into it?
Well, no, we can still chat. I'm just saying I'm not doing like a little spiel like I normally would to set it up because
so
we're following on.
If you didn't hear it, go back and listen to it.
Yes. Basically, if this is where you're tuning in, go back to part 1. Otherwise, none of this is going to make sense to you guys. Mm-hmm. But it is Wednesday and me and you, Phil, don't get confused, but we're going to talk in the future a little bit because it's actually last Wednesday by the time you guys are listening to this, but I'm going to pretend like it's actually today in real time, and I've just got back from a cruise. How exciting.
Well, I'm hoping you get back from the cruise.
Hopefully I get back from a cruise. That's why we're pre-recording this. We've been so busy this week trying to get out these 2 episodes. But it's next week, so it's today. And I just got back from a cruise, which I left for on Saturday. And yeah, I bet I had the best time.
You've confused the shit out of me.
Well, I'm just pretending like it's today.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
When they're listening, because I don't want to talk a week behind, if that makes sense. It's Wednesday.
Okay.
So yeah, I went on a cruise with my family. My mum has had no idea. Me and my sister jumped on their cruise. Like, we're going to surprise them. We did surprise them. So that's exciting. Phil,
I've been to Cairns for a wedding, and I've also been on full-time dad duties as well.
Oh, poor you. How was the wedding?
Wedding, great. It was great.
I bet she looked beautiful.
Yeah. Full-time dad duties is no different for me because I do that all the time anyway.
Fucking dig.
No,
what?
It wasn't a dig.
That's kind of a dig.
No, I mean, like, because like I feel like I'm a real hands-on dad.
You are a real hands-on dad.
So, like, there's no difference.
Except for
I'll just be doing it without you here.
You did it without me.
I did it without you here.
You survived. You survived.
Oh.
Anyway, great weekends all round. I'm excited to get into today's episode. How are you feeling after last episode?
Yeah, there's a lot to think about since we spoke last.
It's been so long.
There was big build up to it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so
I'll do a recap at the start, so you don't need to.
But I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah.
And hear who it was, because I've got my suspicions about, was it the husband? Did he fly over? Did he get someone to do it? Was it this dodgy reporter that's originally from the UK?
Yeah.
Was it freaking an international spy? Was it the white lady? Was it the lady that was having the affair? I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many
avenues.
Yep. So
very exciting. I'm excited to get through an episode without being interrupted today, because last episode, you guys, I don't know if you picked it up, but we probably stopped every 10 minutes to
they wouldn't have picked it up.
I watched it back last night. I didn't really pick it up, but Goldie was home. She wasn't well on Monday, and then we had to film on Tuesday, and she was feeling a lot better, and she just wanted to be involved. Just didn't feel right having her sit next to us in a true crime podcast. So tried to distract her as much as I could, but I'm excited to get through it today and actually be able to talk about it, because I feel like every time I stopped reading and went to talk about it and get your feedback, she was like, Dad. Anyway, let me know if you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go. Tell me, darling.
Get straight into part 2 of the Sophie Toscan Du Plantier case.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Let's go.
So when I left you last in part 1, Marie Farrell had just told the guard that she had just spotted a man inside her shop who she believes to be the same man she saw the day before Sophie's body was found, but also the same man she spotted on Kafalda Bridge at 3 a.m. in the morning, around the time it was presumed that Sophie was murdered.
Yes.
And just to do a quick recap of the timeline so that we're up to date and everyone's memories are fresh, I'm just going to go through the dates. So first of all, just to clarify, we're in 1996.
Yeah,
okay?
96.
I did fuck up last episode. I said 86.
Fucked up, Aaron.
I don't know how I did it. I don't know. Anyway, we're in 96. So it is the 20th of December. Sophie arrives in Ireland and makes her way to her cottage in Tumor. On the 22nd of December, the last person to see Sophie alive is Billy O'Sullivan when Sophie leaves his pub to go home. On the 23rd of December, Sophie's neighbour discovers her body at the end of their shared driveway at around 10 a.m. On Christmas Eve, the 24th of December, Sophie's body is examined and as well as the crime scene, and her body is finally taken away from the scene. On the 25th of December, it's Christmas Day, and this is where a lady claims she spotted Ian Bailey with cuts on his hands. On the 26th of December, Ian Bailey released a story in the paper which shared details that the Gardaí believed were not public knowledge yet. The same day, Sophie's parents and auntie would arrive to identify Sophie's body. On the 31st of December, the guard would interview Ian Bailey and Jules Thomas, his partner, and they would confront Ian about his recent scratches and his whereabouts on the night of Sophie's murder. Ian would claim that they were from cutting down a pine tree for Christmas and that he never met Sophie Toscan Du Plantier. On the 11th of January, the guard held a press conference asking if anyone was driving around the area on the night of the murder and saw anything to get in contact. This would lead to a woman named Fiona calling the guard and telling them that she saw a man on Colfata Bridge. This would happen 3 times until January 24th, 1997, when they finally conclude that the woman named Fiona is actually Marie Farrell. Marie would identify this man a few days later as Ian Bailey. Are we up to date?
Yeah.
Any questions?
You know what I didn't think of before?
What?
Billy, the pub owner. I didn't even think to question him. What if it's him?
It's definitely not Billy. Billy's heartbroken that Sophie has been murdered.
Yeah, because maybe Billy wanted something more than just a friendly chat at the pub.
Okay, well, I'm telling you that you better back the fuck up on Billy, because he's just a lovely old man who is heartbroken that he was the last person to see Sophie alive. All right?
We'll see.
Back up.
We'll see.
All right. Okay.
We'll see.
Oh, all right. So moving on. Towards the end of January 1997, Ian gets a visit from Detective Superintendent Dermot Dwyer, and the two of them have very different recollections of how their conversation went during this visit. So I'm going to play a clip so you can hear both sides of their story. Ready?
Yep.
So just for reference, Ian Bailey is the English,
yes,
and the detective is the more Irish accent. You'll be able to tell.
He came to the house. Jules was out. I invited him in.
Ian Bailey is about 6'3". He was a very imposing man, full of confidence, and he was a very good speaker. We sat down.
I made him coffee.
He made very good coffee too, as a matter of fact.
I think we still had some mince pies left from Christmas, so I offered him Christmas pies.
Oh, he would look. Yeah, he was. He told the fucking country that I was after eating 2 mince pies.
He seemed quite reasonable to me at the time, and I was very happy to assist if I could.
I was fascinated, everything I heard about him. He was sizing me up, and I was sizing him up. Kind of a friendly conversation, but it was probing on both sides. Bailey's a complex character, you know. He's a complex character. And I said, Ian, we better talk about his mother.
We were talking in the kitchen, and he said, did I play poker? And I said, no, I don't. And he said, you should. I thought, well, that's a strange thing to say. No, I don't play poker, but I know what poker is. It's a game of bluff.
Did I ask him, did he play poker? Not at all. I didn't ask him that because I don't play poker. Do you get me?
And he said to me, I'm going to place you at Kilfodder Bridge in the early hours of the morning of 23rd. I said, that's ridiculous. That's nonsense. He said, we'll see.
That was not true. Why would I say that? I'll place you, that was the words. I'll place you at Kilfodder Bridge at 3 o'clock in the morning as if... Why did I tell him that? I didn't tell him that at all. It was a good story by him. I said, who do you think did it? And he said, it was a professional hitman, a stranger, from Paris, on behalf of Daniel Toscan Du Plantier. Oh, he said to me, who do you think did it? So I said, no, I don't know. Should I even be saying this now? I said, no, Ian, do you know what I think? And said, the man that did it is local. He's a head kiss, and so on. And I said, I have a good idea who that is, and I think you have a good idea, and I left it like that.
I realised this guy was I believe to be actually a psychopathic criminal wearing the blue uniform from Garda Síochána.
Look, there were about 10 different cops interviewed him. He doesn't know the name of one more. He knew me, and every problem he has now, I'm the cause of all of it.
Oh, tea, right?
Yeah.
What did you think of that conversation?
I don't know. I couldn't understand them.
Oh, come on.
In English. You know I don't speak Spanish. No, yeah, that was interesting.
Kind of crazy how different they both
So
interpret that convo.
well, obviously this was a past interview of them recalling their events, their
Yes.
talk with each other.
Yes, this
Because
is
obviously
like years
their
later.
first talk wasn't the police officer. He wouldn't have, that
No
wouldn't have
cameras
been
or anything.
recording.
No.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. And then, all right, police officer thinks it's him, is trying to like tell him, hey, I'm going to catch you. I'm going to find you at that bridge. I'm going to pin it to you. And the other one was saying that it wasn't him. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He thinks it's an international. What did he
Yeah,
say?
he thinks it's someone from France and like,
Yeah.
and then
And it's
he
the
like,
husband trying to do it.
Yeah, and then he
She-
says that like Detective Dwyer is like a psychopath wearing a police uniform.
Oh,
Like that's what he was saying at the
Okay.
end there.
damn, I don't know who to
And
believe
then
now.
Detective Dwyer was like, there was about 10 different people who interviewed Ian, but he only remembered my name. So
Yeah.
every problem that he has with the Garda now,
Is
he
now-
just relates back to Dwyer because
Yeah.
it's the only name he knows, kind
Wow.
of thing. But it was just interesting how tit for tat their stories were.
Yeah,
I don't know. I felt like I was watching like a reality TV show. I was into it.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Right.
So on the 10th of February 1997, Ian Bailey is at home writing when two men come to his back door. When they knock on the door and he opens it, it's two guardsmen. They tell Ian that he was under arrest for the murder of Sophie Toscan Du Plantier. At the same time, another squad car arrived at the Prairie, which is the home of Jules Thomas, Ian's partner, and they arrested her for the murder of Sophie also. Ian was taken to Bandon Garden Station and Jules would arrive there a few hours later. A crowd of media was gathered around the Bandon Station. This was big news because it was the first time anyone outside of the Garda had any new information on Sophie's murder. Sophie's family were also informed of the arrest. It was kind of the first time that they had really any updates on Sophie's murder as well.
Mm-hmm.
The French media had a huge interest in this case because not only was it one of their own who had been murdered, but it was a woman from a prominent family who was quite famous in France.
Yeah.
They too wanted answers. So during his interview, Ian was asked if he was involved in Sophie's murder, and Ian retells his same story from the first time that the Garda came to his home and asked him for his movements on the night of December 22nd. He claims that he was in the galley with Jules, which is a pub. Then at midnight, they went home and went to bed, and they never left the house again after that.
Okay. Just quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. So what day did he get arrested?
The 10th of February.
Okay, 10th of Feb. So roughly, was that 6 weeks later? Roughly.
Yeah,
5, 6
8
weeks.
or 9.
No, December.
Oh, 10th of Feb. Yes,
Yes.
sorry. About 8 weeks.
What was her husband, Sophie's husband, doing throughout this time back home in France? Was he trying to get answers as well? Like, what was going on there in the France? And
Yeah.
because she was obviously from France. She was a France, like.
Yeah, she lived in France.
Yeah.
The cottage was her holiday home.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So were they? Yeah.
So they were kind of just...
Was the government
like
over
kind
there
of like
trying to get?
sitting
Did they fly the
ducks.
body back? Like, how does that work? Because if you
Yeah.
pass over.
So
pass away
Sophie's
overseas,
parents
Yep.
came on the 26th of December
Yes.
to identify Sophie's body.
Yep.
Daniel did not come.
That's okay.
And then I don't know exactly what date, but they
Yeah.
came back again for Sophie's body and they flew her home to bury her.
Why'd the husband?
But
not
he
go?
never came. He never came. And then, so this is only February. It's only really just over a month
Yeah.
past her murder. So,
Yeah.
you know, the investigation is still like that. No one really knows anything outside
Yeah.
of the Garda. It's very hush hush. Like it's
Yeah.
like a normal investigation. People don't release details. It's very important that you don't release details because that can lead you on like a different path. Like people speculate wrong things. You know, things just go wrong. So at the moment, they're kind of just sitting ducks
Yeah.
in France, just waiting to hear. And this is kind of the first news that they get.
All
Someone's
right.
been arrested
Okay.
for her murder.
Yep.
Yes. So they asked Ian how he knew to get to the scene of Sophie's murder, to which he replied he was aware that there was a French woman living in Timor near a neighbour whom he had once done work for. When they asked Ian when the last time he saw Sophie was, he said sometime in the spring the year before last. Okay. They asked if he had met with her in Skull on the Saturday the 21st, and he told them that he did not. They asked him again how he learnt about the murder, and he tells them a contact of his named something Cassidy called him at 1:40 and told him that a French woman had been murdered. But when the Garda speak to this man, he tells them that he did not tell Ian that it was a French woman, just that it was a foreign national. West Cork was a society filled with many foreign people, but Ian Bailey and Jules Thomas drove straight to the crime scene without information whatsoever on the identity of the victim. So this is kind of what the Garda are basing this arrest around.
But small town, there's never a murder. Of course, he's going to drive there no matter who it is.
But, okay, the question is,
Yeah.
how did he know that it was Sophie's house? How did he know that that's where the murder was? Nobody knew that.
Oh, he didn't actually know where it was.
No, this man by the name of, his last name is Cassidy, told Ian, this is his version, that there had been a murder on a foreign national, not a French, a foreign. But Ian is telling the Garda that he said, no, he said it was a French woman, and I knew that there was a French woman living there.
Okay.
But this Eddie Cassidy is saying, no, I didn't even know it was a French woman. I just knew it was a foreign. So the police are saying, how did you know she was French, and how did you know it was at Sophie's house?
Yep.
This house is remote. This house is not easy to find, and nobody knew these details yet.
Interesting.
So this is why the Garda are like, how do you know?
Yep.
This is why they're sus on Ian.
Yep.
Cool. So I lost my spot. So what the Garda are really trying to work out, as I was saying, is did Ian know about Sophie prior to the phone call with Eddie Cassidy? Subsequently, a woman who was living in Skibbereen by the name of Caroline Leftwick said that Ian Bailey rang her sometime between 11:30 and 12 to say that he couldn't come to her house. I think he was delivering a turkey or something, because there had been a murder, and she asked him if she would know who it was, and he said no, it's a French lady. This is at between 11:30 and 12.
Yeah.
Then Ian was due to deliver a turkey to a man named Paul O'Coleman, but he said that around approximately 11:30, Ian called him to tell him he couldn't deliver the turkey because there's been a murder.
Yep.
At around 10:30, 11 in the morning, Jules went into the local village and somebody asked her where Ian was, and she said he's gone off investigating a murder.
Yep.
And at that stage, nobody knew anything about a murder.
Yep.
So do you see like why the Garda are like
Yeah.
sus on him? He seems to know a lot of information that he shouldn't know.
Yep.
And like his timeline of knowing this is getting earlier and earlier and earlier.
You know, you're a journalist. You hear these things. You know, you get this information. Someone's feeding it to him. Well, he just knows. He just knows.
Sophie's body was found at 10 a.m. and you're going to tell me that by 10:30 he knew and he was out investigating a murder?
Oh, so it was already 10:30 when he's
That's
looking.
what I'm saying. It started off, I didn't know until 1:40, but now it's saying at 10:30 Jules is telling someone he's out investigating a murder. At 11:30 he calls someone to tell them there was a murder, and it was a French woman. How did he know that?
Yes. How did he know?
Right. Thank you. We're on the same page. So while Ian was being interrogated at the station, a forensic unit was sent to his home to see if they could find any evidence against Ian that related to Sophie's murder. The house came up empty. There was nothing there that they thought tied him to Sophie all that evening. So they decided to go down the road to his and Jules' studio. Out the back, they find a fire scene and the remnants of what was a fire. A lady by the name of Louise Kennedy had told the guards that on the 26th of December, she was out for a walk when she saw a fire burning behind the studio. There wasn't anyone around, just the fire burning and what she thought to be a mattress on fire.
Oh, damn.
So when the guards sifted through the remaining ash traces, all they found was mattress springs, what looked like bedding, a pair of what looked like boots, and also some buttons, like from a coat jacket, appear to be...
Was Sophie's place missing a mattress?
No.
Oh.
A coat jacket appeared to have been burnt in the pit.
Yep.
So this raises questions and concerns, like who would burn something like this right outside of your own back door? Like it was like 2 meters away from the studio.
Mm-hmm.
My thoughts when I read this is like, okay, maybe he did it. He comes home, he falls asleep at the studio, the mattress is covered in blood, his clothes are covered in blood, sheets are covered in blood, and so they burn it.
Okay.
Why else would you burn a mattress?
I don't know. You don't want that mattress no more. You just want to burn it.
As we mentioned in part 1, like they don't really have a garbage disposal service. So, they could have just been clearing things out.
Like they just burn their rubbish.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But also sus.
Maybe.
Ian told them that he had a fire in early December, but there was no fire on the 26th of December. So he argues against the witness, saying, no, that didn't happen. So while Ian is being questioned in one room, Jules is being questioned in another, and Jules' recollection of events differs slight from that of Ian's. Jules says, this is the first time she's kind of changed her story.
Okay.
Jules says that on the night of Sophie's murder, they'd been in the Galley Inn in Skull, and they left around 12:30 a.m.
Yep.
She says that on the way home, they stopped off at Hunt's Hill. There's a nice view from there, and it was a full moon, and Ian gets out of the car and commented that the lights seemed to be on across the valley at Alfie Lyon's house, Sophie's neighbour. He could also see the gable light on Sophie's house. Jules said Ian was suggesting that they might call over to Alfie's, that there might be a party going on, and he said to Jules, I get the feeling there's something bad going to happen here tonight. She says to him, will you get in the car and we'll go home? And they went to bed. Initially, Jules tells the Gardaí that they came home and spent the whole evening at home until the morning. But in a turn of events, Jules finally admits that in fact Ian did get up out of bed. He had woken her when he got up, but he didn't realise that she had woken up. It was about an hour after they had originally gone to bed. And she didn't see Ian again until the next morning when he brought her a coffee.
She just dobbed him in.
Well, she just realised, like, actually, no.
But with all those things he's saying, there's a party over there. We got to go over there. Something bad's going to happen. I don't know. That's...
super sus.
Yeah.
Super sus.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so he gets up. He's out. We don't know where he is. He's out. He doesn't come back till next morning with the coffee. Mm-hmm. All right.
So, when the police go back to Ian and they're like, listen, mate.
Yeah.
We fucking know you weren't at home. We got you. They tell Ian, Jules has told us that you weren't in bed with her all night, and Ian changes his story.
Okay.
He says, oh yes, now I remember that I did get up. I did a bit of writing in my kitchen, and then I went down to my studio to do some work. Don't forget the studio is a little down the road. It's like another house.
Okay, so it's not just like in his backyard or anything.
It's like down the way, and it's like another, it's essentially like another house.
Yep.
So with that, Bailey now has been stripped of his alibi. It's shut because he says that he was at home all night, but he in fact wasn't. Unfortunately, even with all of this, the evidence against Ian was circumstantial.
Yeah.
The 12 hours holding time had expired and Ian Bailey was free to go home, as was Jules.
Damn.
Yeah. No charges pressed.
Shit. So what, back to the drawing board for the detectives?
Back to the drawing board because everything they have is circumstantial. He said, she said.
Wow.
Yeah. Sucky, right?
Yep. Sucky.
That's a real word.
Oh, man. Yeah, it is. It sucks. It sucks.
Yeah. So everyone was pretty disappointed by this. The guards who truly believed that Ian was Sophie's murderer, Sophie's family, who with what knowledge the guard had shared with them, too believed Ian was Sophie's murderer. The people of the town who thought the devil in the hills had finally been captured, they thought that they had answers as to who Sophie's killer was, but they were still left basically speculating.
Yeah.
The following day, Ian's picture is front page news in the town and people are learning for the first time that Ian was the number one suspect in Sophie's murder.
Wow.
There was quite a divide formed in the town after this. You know, there was those who thought Ian was innocent, and then there was those who thought they were completely convinced that he was guilty, and that included the Garda.
Mm-hmm.
Ian would go on to do many, many interviews claiming his innocence. It almost started to appear like he liked the publicity and was enjoying his 5 minutes of fame in the spotlight.
Yeah.
He would go on to claim that he never met or never knew Sophie Toscan Du Plantier, in as much as he'd never met her. He even invited reporters into his home and would talk about the case over tea and scones. It gave people the impression that Ian was a person that craved publicity. Chief Superintendent Dermot Dwyer would describe Ian as someone who couldn't be normal. Mm-hmm. He loved attention, and the more it was in the paper, the more he wanted it. But he always preached his innocence, you know. He always claimed he had nothing to do with Sophie's murder. So there's a real question around why people still think that he had done it. And it turns out that he had told people he had done it.
What?
Yes. Bomb dropped.
Like how far, like how long after?
I'll get into that.
Okay.
So after Ian's arrest, rumours and whispers started to spread about him. People would say things like he was howling at the moon and walking around in his underpants, saying crazy things. This was about a month after the murder.
Oh, he was doing this stuff after, or this had come out?
So these rumours started spreading that he was doing this about a month after the murder.
Yep. Maybe he was the white lady.
He was the white lady.
Yeah, like he is the white lady. Like he was possessed by the white lady to do hectic. Hold up. Is there any weirdos in the town that actually believe it could have been the white lady or the curse of the white lady?
No. It's just an unfortunate series of events, I would say, that adds to, I guess, the mystery surrounding this case.
Okay. All right.
Nobody believes that Sophie was murdered by a white lady. Okay. No.
Why would they have that as a, why would that be a, what do you call them?
I don't know. The mention of the white lady is not part of the Garda's investigation. It's just something that also happened, which kind of is like what is spooky about the beginning of this case.
Okay.
Look at me in the eyes. It was not the white lady.
Yeah, but the white lady possessed someone to do it.
Maybe she did. But it's the last I'm going to talk about it with you. Okay, let the white lady go.
Why'd you tell me in the first place then?
Because it was a part of the story.
All right. It's still part of the story.
It's factual. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on. In late February 1997, 7 weeks after Sophie's murder, a man by the name of Billy Fuller decides that he's going to visit Ian because they were friends at the time, and so he wanted to let Ian know what people were saying about him. Ian welcomes him in. He offers him a drink, and Billy says to him, "No, I'm actually working, but I just popped in to see you." He tells Ian that people have been saying that he's been spotted doing strange things, howling at the moon and stuff. And with this information, Ian's demeanor changes.
He starts doing that shit, does he?
He becomes agitated and kind of aggressive and almost throws like a tantrum. Like he's not welcoming this information well.
Maybe it's true.
He then turns to Billy, and he looks him in the eye and he says, "You fucker." Like, "You fucker." Points at him, "You fucker." And Billy's like, "Me what?" And Ian says, "You saw her in the spa the day before she was killed, and then you saw her tight ass and wanted to give her one. Then when you went up to her house at 2 a.m, she ran away screaming because you scared her, and you chased her down and threw something at the back of her head, and you realized you went too far." And Billy, in shock, is like, "What the fuck are you, what? Like what?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Where did that even come from?" Billy felt like Ian was admitting like what he had done, but through Billy.
Yeah.
You know, when Billy left, he was scared. Like he was in shock of the exchange that had just taken place. And in that moment, Billy believed that Ian was the one who murdered Sophie.
Yeah. Why would you say exactly what possibly could have happened?
Very specific. At 2 a.m, you chased her down the hill and threw a rock at the back of her head.
Yep.
People didn't know this. Weird, right?
Yes.
So that would be the first instance, okay? Another instance of Ian admitting, people taking it as an admission, I should say, that he murdered Sophie would be when he was speaking to a journalist that he kind of worked for sometimes. And she was telling Ian about the fact that people were saying it was him around the office who murdered Sophie in their office. And he responded with, "Of course I did. I needed a story."
Yeah.
You could kind of take this sarcastically, a little like dark humor, but is it funny? Not really.
No.
When you're a prime suspect,
Yep.
it's probably not something that you should go around and say.
Mm-hmm.
Another story that people became familiar with is that there was a couple. They were out celebrating New Year's in 1998, and on that night they met Jules Thomas and Ian Bailey, and they were invited back to their home at the Prairie. Ian started talking about the murder, and then suddenly he was crying and very emotional.
How, 1998, so it's a couple of years later now.
This particular instance.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
Yep.
Ian started talking about the murder, and then suddenly he was crying and very emotional, and Richie, the male from the couple, thought this to be very strange as he watched Ian cry.
Yep.
And Ian said, he comes out, he's like, "And I did it." And he repeated this about 4 or 5 times. "I did it, I did it, I did it." And Richie's like, "Did what? What did you do?" And Ian didn't answer him. He just kept saying like, I did it," while crying. And Richie asked him again, like, "Did what?" And Ian said to him, "I went too far."
Uh-huh.
The couple was so frightened by this that they quite literally left the house. Like, they ran away.
Yeah.
They were like, what the fuck?
Yep.
Another day in February, about this going back, was about 2 months after Sophie had died.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A 14-year-old boy by the name of Malachi sees Ian Bailey in the town and asks him for a lift home. Malachi's mum happens to be friends with Jules, Ian's partner, and so this wasn't unusual. They would often give each other's children's lifts home.
Yeah.
So this isn't like weird.
All right.
But during the drive, Ian appears a little stressed, and it kind of looks like he may have been drinking.
Mm-hmm.
During the drive, Malachi asks Ian how his work is going, and Ian turns to him and says, "It was going great until I went up there and bashed her brains in."
Whoa.
Sorry. "It was fine until I went up there and bashed her fucking brains in." He says this to 14-year-old Malachi. Yes. Really random, out of nowhere.
Yep.
And as you can imagine, like how uncomfortable Malachi felt
Yeah.
during this altercation. So when he got home, Malachi didn't say anything to his mother.
Yep.
He feared that he might get in trouble for getting a lift home with Ian because Ian had been drinking.
Yep.
Like, he was nervous about that. But when he woke up the next morning, he told his mother about the statements that Ian made, and
Yep.
they went and made a statement with the Garda.
Okay.
So the next morning he
Yep.
told her. But fucked, right?
Yeah.
And like Ian would like come back like and to say that he was joking on all of these instances.
Yeah.
It was a joke. How was that funny?
That's, yeah. And even, fuck, they should arrest him. Take him in.
If you're going to go around and admit to people, whether it's a joke or not, that you killed someone freshly after they had been brutally murdered, you deserve to go away. Whether you're innocent or not, fuck you. Go to jail.
Yeah.
That's so rude.
Yeah.
So rude.
He mustn't be all there in the head. All these people we talk about, they're not all there in the head.
No. So the 23rd of December 1997, a year after Sophie's murder, her family travelled to Ireland to share a service in Sophie's honour with the local people who knew her. They leave the light on in Sophie's window, which has been left completely isolated since Sophie's death, and lay flowers on the ground where her body lay only a year earlier.
Yep.
Sophie's now widowed husband Daniel does not attend.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm still sus on him.
On the 27th of January 1998, Ian Bailey is arrested for the second time. It was his birthday, so you can imagine he wasn't very pleased to see
Happy birthday.
them. Yeah. The Garda had 12 hours to interview Ian Bailey again and gather as much evidence as possible before they would put together everything that they had and present it to the DPP, which is the Director of Public Prosecutions. And they would be the ones who decide whether or not they would actually charge Ian Bailey with the murder of Sophie Toscan Du Plantier.
Yep.
So basically, the Garda has to correlate as much evidence as possible, send it to the DPP, and the DPP decide whether they're going to charge or not.
Okay.
After 12 hours and no actual confession from Ian Bailey, the DPP rejected the Garda's claims to charge Ian Bailey, and he was again released without charge.
Okay.
Yeah, disappointing. You're going to hate this. A year and a half after Sophie's death, her former husband Daniel marries his fourth wife.
What the fuck? He's done something. I don't like that. He doesn't show up 2 days after she's been murdered to identify the body. He hasn't shown up at all by the sounds of it.
He's yet to go to Ireland.
Yeah, he's yet to go there. And I feel like there hasn't been much involvement. Like he's trying to move on or get away because he knows or has done something.
Yeah, I don't know. But I just
But
can't
a year and a half
fathom a year
later,
and a half.
yeah.
It's not like she died like of cancer, like kind of peacefully in her sleep. She was brutally murdered.
And not just getting with someone, actually getting married.
Getting married.
How long was he with that person before?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
If you even fucking winked at someone a year and a half after I was brutally murdered, I would come back and haunt you.
Damn.
It's not okay.
Yeah, nah, not cool, man.
Not cool, man.
Not cool. Mr. Big Time Hollywood director.
And this is his fourth wife.
He ain't a good husband, yeah.
Surely after the third time and she's brutally murdered, you might just call it a day. Maybe it's not for you.
I'm on one and done with you.
Thank you.
Like one and done for the rest of my life.
Right. I mean, I try not to judge, but I'm judging. That just feels too soon. It's not okay.
Yeah, okay.
So on the same weekend that Daniel gets married, Sophie's family is in Ireland and they erected a cross in her honour in Timor where she died.
Yep.
In the year 2000, Daniel finally travels to Cork to meet with the guards investigating Sophie's murder.
Hang on, the ex-husband.
Yeah.
But he's married to someone else.
Yes,
and he's come 4 years later.
Yeah, he's still,
it was 98 or 96?
96. So we're 4 years later.
Okay.
Yeah. He travels to Cork to talk with the guards, and although he had moved on in his personal life, he had never stopped fighting for justice for Sophie, even from France, apparently. After speaking with Daniel leaves with not much more information than when he arrived. He's also quite frustrated on his departure. Daniel believes that had this crime taken place in France, Ian would no doubt have already been arrested, convicted, and in jail because they do things differently there.
Yep.
So I don't think I've got this in my script, but basically in France, their legal system's so different. Like they're a completely different country to Ireland.
They're like full onto it, like straight away, aren't they?
It's just more how they do things. So in Ireland, they work off the British justice system, and you need to prove someone to sentence someone as guilty. You have to. It's something like beyond reasonable doubt that they did it. Like they're innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt.
Yep.
In France, it's not the same. It's kind of like there's a French term for it, which I cannot say, but they basically need like a bouquet of evidence, like just kind of enough that it points in the right direction.
And boom, you're done.
And that's it. They don't need DNA. They don't need, like, it doesn't need to be set in stone. It's kind of just like a bouquet. Like, this is enough. You've got 10 different, you've got witnesses.
Yep.
You've got, Ian was here at this time.
With just Jade saying he got up and left the house. And
enough. Yeah. Bouquet. Put it together. That's enough.
Yeah. Okay.
So after this, things go quiet, and that is until the year 2003, when in the effort to clear his name, Ian sues 7 Irish and British newspapers in a libel action.
Wow.
Ian Bailey's lawyer claimed that for almost 7 years, he had been put on trial by a slanted media which had set out to demonize his client. The newspapers denied ever saying that he killed Sophie Toscan Du Plantier, and only that he was a suspect in her murder. Ian Bailey's argument was that because of the continued newspaper articles, he was unable to earn a living, and essentially they were ruining his life.
Yeah.
So the newspapers were told that to win, basically that they had to prove that Ian Bailey was capable of murder, and that they actually had the guards help with this, to prove that. Yeah. The guards helped them to prove that Ian was capable of murder. There were about 70 witnesses during the trial, 2 of which were Richie and Rosie Shelley, the couple that went back to New Year's Eve.
Yep.
The Pavers legal team were granted access to Ian Bailey's files with the Garda, including his personal diaries, of which they had taken as evidence.
Okay.
Ian Bailey's diaries were forensically examined, and there were writings about violence, about alcohol, substance abuse, about sexual preferences, personal behaviour. During the trial, there was enormous attention focused on Ian Bailey's history of domestic violence against his partner, Jules. It almost became the front line of defence for the newspapers.
Yep.
So because they were allowed access to the Garda files, they were allowed access to Ian's history, and they discovered that he had a past with domestic violence.
Okay, all right.
They learned that 6 months before Sophie's murder, Jules's daughter, Virginia, goes to their friend and neighbour's house and knocks on the door. Peter Bilecki opens it, and she asks him, "Could you take my mum to the hospital, please?" He goes to Jules's home to see what's going on, and as he walks through the door, he finds Jules whimpering inside on the bed. Her eye was bruised and swollen shut, like almost like turned in. It was fucked up. She was missing patches of hair on the top of her head, and when I say missing, I mean as if someone had taken clippers and shaved like a 5-centimeter patch, like handful chunk hair ripped out.
Yep.
She has bald patches. There was gouges in her face, and her lip was severed from her gum, and she needed like 5 to 10 stitches to fix this. And this was all done by Ian. This would become a common occurrence. There was at least 5 records of domestic violence. So now it's clear that Ian has a history with domestic violence. And so this really doesn't do wonders for his already damaged reputation.
This makes me mad. How was this not known? Why did she not tell anyone earlier? Like, just for this, he needs his head beaten in.
Yeah, I
That makes me
agree.
so mad.
I agree. Marie Farrell was a witness during the trial. Marie was the one who allegedly spotted Ian on the bridge that night and really is one of the reasons that the Garda becomes so heavily invested in Ian. She told the court during the trial that Ian would make cutthroat gestures at her and that he was torturing her, like her life, harassing her, that her life was a living nightmare because she couldn't even stay in her own shop.
Okay, yep.
The court would come to rule against Ian Bailey in his libel action against newspapers and described him as a violent man. The case was dropped. Ian initially opened the trial to clear his name, but it had quite the opposite effect. But regardless, he would still walk away a free man. So he lost his suit. The newspapers won.
Yep. Good.
In 2007, Sophie's family creates the Association for Truth about the murder of Sophie in France. It's been 11 years since Sophie's murder, and they felt like the case had gone cold and that they didn't feel like justice for their daughter had been served. They would have meetings once a month where they would discuss Sophie's case and any new details or advances in the case. They had connections in France, so they were all like working with the French police as well because they felt like Ireland just really wasn't doing enough.
Yep.
After the libel action that Ian had filed against the newspapers in 2003, Sophie's family finally had all of the details in her murder. They finally heard all of the witness statements and Ian's odd admissions. They finally could see why he was the number one suspect, and with this, their fight for Sophie began.
Oh, cool.
Because they had no idea.
Yeah.
They didn't know about anything because the Garda had kept this quiet, like, for their investigation.
Yep.
I can see why that they did it, but I can also see why this would be very frustrating for Sophie's family who
Yes.
just want to know what happened.
So now, are they allowed to... They're doing their own investigation from...
France.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yes. So, in a crazy turn of events, out of nowhere, Marie Farrell, the woman who had spotted Ian Bailey on Trafalgar Bridge the night of Sophie's murder,
Is this 2007 still?
just after,
Okay. Yep.
she retracts her statements.
What the fuck? He's gone to her and told her, you better retract that.
It is alleged that she phoned Ian Bailey's solicitor, Frank Buttimer, and said to him, "I want to tell the truth." She subsequently withdraws all of her statements that she had made to the Garda about the Du Plantier investigation. She retracts all of her statements and goes on to say that the Garda had forced her to say that she had seen Ian Bailey on Trafalgar Bridge the night. And what a shitstorm that was.
Damn. Oh, man. What the
I
fuck?
know.
I don't know what's going on now.
Me either. But this fucking
Shit.
turns this case on its head because she was the Garda's key witness. Her putting Ian Bailey on the bridge that night was like their solid.
But,
like,
okay, yeah, well, that was... But did that actually happen, though?
to this day, she still stands by her retractment.
Well, so was she... The Garda told her that and she's ruined this man's life for this long, but he's still a scum for what he's done. But, oh, man, all right, tell me more.
I know, mind-boggling. Pick your jaw up. Bailey was thrilled by this, obviously. He even said at one point, "Welcome onto the side of good."
How is Bailey? That's old mate's...
Ian Bailey.
Oh, yeah, Ian Bailey. Yeah, okay,
He
yeah.
says to her, "Welcome onto the side of good."
Uh-huh.
They now had a witness on their side that would back up his claim that the Garda was corrupt. So this is his...
Damn.
Yeah. Barry Roche. This is the reporter that arrived on scene second.
Okay, yep.
Would comment that he didn't believe that the Garda was corrupt. However, he suggested that there was a lack of competence in their investigation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a comment that he made that I thought was relevant.
Yep.
In December 2011, 15 years after Sophie's murder, the DPP releases a report on why the evidence against Ian Bailey didn't merit a charge in relation to Sophie's murder. Eamon Barnes, who was the prosecutor at the time, said in his opinion the evidence against Ian came nowhere near warranting a charge and that the Garda investigation was thoroughly flawed and prejudiced in relation to Mr. Bailey. The DPP decided that there were very questionable practices being used by the Garda during the investigation. In almost every single case where a witness gave a statement and Ian gives a different version, the DPP tends to side with Ian's interpretation of it.
Whoa.
He argued with every single witness in terms of their credibility. He even questions on the basis that they didn't make the statement immediately. For example, Malachi, the 14-year-old, didn't tell his mother about what Ian Bailey had said to him until the next morning, not when he got home. So the DPP dismissed that entire statement.
Oh, okay.
Fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Like, fucked up. One of the most shocking things about the report is it says that, yes, Ian Bailey had been very violent towards women, but then unfortunately, this is not uncommon. The conclusion at the end of the report basically says that we believe there are not sufficient grounds to send him to trial.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah. So that's kind of it now. They can only do that. Like, the Garda can only present to the DPP twice.
Oh, what?
That's it for Ireland. In 2012, 16 years after the murder of Sophie Toscan Du Plantier, Ian Bailey lodges a complaint against the conduct of the murder investigation and began building his own case against the Irish state. So he's suing the state now.
Whoa.
We're back again. So in November 2014, Jules and Ian arrive in the court for the start of his action against the suit. The action that Ian took in the Irish High Court went on for 64 days. This was the longest running civil case in Irish legal history. Ian's argument is basically that he was wrongly accused for Sophie's murder and that for the last 18 years his life has been hell as a direct result. For him, this was not just a case of seeking damages, but for the jury to look at the Garda investigation and decide if this is how it should have been conducted by the people we entrust to uphold the law.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Graham would be placed on the witness stand, and he admitted that the Gardaí offered to pay him money, clothes and drugs in exchange for him getting close to Ian Bailey, encouraging him to drink so that he would confess. The Garda denied all the claims and really did their best to demerit Martin on the stand. However, this was all turned on its head when his version of events seemed to be supported by an actual phone call with a policeman.
Oh.
So, the Bandon tape scandal broke in December 2013. In police stations all across the country, the Garda had been recording telephone conversations. This was both secret and illegal, and it was happening from the early 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
The Bandon tapes were just one of many police scandals that were exposed, and this resulted in the resignation of the Garda commissioner at the time. A lot of the calls in Bandon were about Sophie's murder, including conversations with Marie Farrell and Martin Graham. After hearing the Bandon tapes and where a Garda officer is heard asking Martin if he would be wanting money in exchange for a statement, the tapes themselves became irrelevant in the case because they had reached the statute of limitations. Mm-hmm. And with this, Ian Bailey loses his case against the state.
Yep.
So basically, the tapes were his biggest bit of evidence against the Garda. But too much time had passed.
Yeah.
They reached statute of limitations. The evidence was dismissed. He couldn't use it. He lost his trial.
Oh.
This leaves him with a substantial $1 million legal bill.
Wow.
Yeah, he's fucked. In May 2019, 22 years. Yes, 2019, 22 years since the murder of Sophie Toscan Du Plantier, her family still firmly believe that Ian Bailey is responsible and they do not accept Ireland's motion to not charge him. For years, they've sat in the background and watched Ireland completely fumble the bag, and they have decided that enough is enough, and with their connections and the help of the French government, they launch a case of absentia against Ian Bailey.
What's that?
So basically, they're like, we don't care if you're here or not, we are having a trial against you for this murder.
Mm-hmm.
During the trial, Ian nor anyone on his behalf or his defense will be there,
Oh.
and neither will a jury.
Yep.
The case will instead be decided by 3 magistrates.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
They can do that over there?
It's in their law.
They got their basket of flowers?
That's right. They got their bouquet.
Fuck.
So they're going to court. They're going to trial. They're like, nope, we're done. On day 1 of the trial, Pierre-Louis, Sophie's only son, now aged 38, arrives at the court.
This 2019?
Yes. He has spent a lot of his life advocating for justice for his mother and has never given up on finding the truth about what happened to her. Sophie's mother and father were also in attendance, and this must just be so difficult for them to sit there and listen to every harrowing detail of the way Sophie died and seeing the images of the crime scene and the images of her body again. I mean, this is a nightmare that they've been living for like 22 years.
Yeah.
On day 2 of the trial, there was a lot of focus on the statement of Marie Farrell and her initial admission of seeing Ian Bailey on Kilfadder Bridge on the same evening that Sophie was murdered. They completely disregard Marie Farrell's retractment.
Okay.
And when she even offered to come to France to testify on behalf of Ian, they rejected her offer.
Wow.
They're like, nope, we're going with your first statement. There was also discussions about Ian's alibi. You know, initially he said that he was in bed all night, and then it was like, oh no, well actually I got up and I went down the stairs to write, and no, actually I went to the studio down the road.
Yeah.
On day 3 of the trial, the mood in the courtroom is somber. The presiding judge opens with a reading of a profile of Ian Bailey. They described him as narcissistic, impulsive, egotistical, that he takes pleasure in being the center of attention, and the conclusion was that he has a borderline psychological disorder without being psychotic. I don't know how they can come to that conclusion, like, without ever meeting him. But
they've got all the info. They got everything that they've needed for the last 15, 16 years. It's easy to come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Like I said, he ain't all there in the head.
Maybe. He's quirky. So it's now Friday, the 30th of May, 2019, the day of the verdict. The 3 magistrates will come together in a closed chamber to make their decision. Sophie's family, who have been waiting for 22 years, these few hours may be the longest few hours that they've ever had to endure. Together, they hope that they will finally have justice for their daughter and for Pierre, his mother. The magistrate finally relays its verdict, and it comes back that Ian Bailey has been found guilty of the murder of Sophie Toscan Du Plantier and sentenced to 25 years in prison.
Whoa.
Obviously, though, Ian Bailey isn't there.
Yep.
So the details of this is being relayed to him over the phone, and it's like kind of happening. As it's kind of happening, he doesn't seem surprised by the outcome. Like, I think everyone kind of knew that he was going to be found guilty.
So can they fly over, pick his ass up? Is it as easy as that?
It's not, unfortunately.
Damn.
In March of 2020, Ian goes to court in Ireland for his extradition appeal. So France tries to extradite him to France. France have issued 3 arrest warrants for Ian, but these are all rejected by Ireland, and he is never extradited to France to serve his 25-year sentence. So even with this conviction, to this day, Ian Bailey is still a free man living in Ireland. He is unable to leave the country on the grounds that he could potentially be arrested and taken to France to carry out his sentence. But I should note that even if he left the country and he got arrested, they would have to retrial him.
Yeah.
He'd have to do a retrial, and they would have to resentence him. Pierre-Louis, Sophie's son, says that for as long as his mother's killer is not behind bars, it is a wound that will never heal. In 2021, Netflix released a documentary called Sophie, A Murder in West Cork, and it's a real insight into Sophie and who she was as a person, but also how heartbreaking it is in a case like this, where the people that love Sophie are left behind to grieve without ever knowing the truth of what happened to her. Sophie Toscan Du Plantier, a radiant soul whose memory continues to shine brightly, left an undeniable mark on the hearts of those who knew her. Her passion for life, love for the Irish landscape, and creative spirit were undeniable, making her a cherished presence in the hearts of many. In the embrace of her son, Pierre-Louis, Sophie's legacy lives on, and as he pays tribute to her strength and unwavering love. Every year he makes a touching journey to her Irish cottage, a sacred space where memories intertwine with the essence of her being. It's a touching testament to the enduring bond between a mother and her child, a bond that transcends time and space. The cottage remains frozen in time, with Sophie's jacket still resting in the very spot it was last placed on the fateful night she left this world. It's a poignant symbol of remembrance, a quiet ode to a life cut short but forever cherished. As the wind whispers through the fields and the waves dance along the shore, Sophie's spirit is ever present, a source of strength and an inspiration for her loving family. And this case, technically in Ireland, still remains unsolved.
What?
Crazy, mind-blowing.
Man.
I know, it's a lot, right?
Hectic.
So hectic.
I thought we were going to come to something. There's going to be an outcome.
I mean, yeah, I guess it just depends on what you believe. Technically in Ireland, he's a free man. In France, he's guilty of Sophie's murder. It's a lot.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Damn. Just trying to think. I'm trying to think.
Don't hurt yourself.
Yeah. So
and also, I didn't put it in there because, I don't know, this was Sophie's story, but in 2013, Daniel Toscan Du Plantier died of a heart attack.
No, that was her husband,
widowed husband. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And was there ever any question around him or
No.
any? Okay.
There was stories flown around that maybe he'd hired a hitman.
Yep.
But these were all stories published by Ian Bailey.
Okay.
So.
Yep.
Questionable.
Damn. All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's just, it's very sad. Very,
Yeah.
very sad what's happened. But it's just, could it have been if they had better policing systems back then to be able to handle something like this or different, like, because that's at the end of the day, who actually knows? Like, we don't.
The killer.
Yeah.
And that's it. Nobody else. Everyone can kind of just assume. But yeah, that was the case of Sophie Toscan Du Plantier. I will never tire of saying that name. I think it's so beautiful, and I think she was so beautiful as well. I highly recommend watching the Netflix documentary. It's very good.
Yeah.
I watched it a few times. It's very good. There's also another one on Stan. It's a bit longer, but I feel like that one focuses a bit more on Ian Bailey, and I honestly just got sick of listening to him. He's just so arrogant. He's so annoying. And yeah. He's still a free man. But anyway, let's finish up this podcast and just remember Sophie, because this is what it's about. It's about Sophie Toscan Du Plantier and how her life was cut short. She left behind a son who was only 15 at the time of her murder, and this is something that he still carries with him today. He really fought for justice for his mother, and he believes that Ian Bailey is guilty. So even though that Ian's not serving time behind bars, I think having the guilty verdict still helps in some way. But obviously, it's still painful knowing that your mother's killer is out there. Whether it is Ian Bailey or not, her killer is still free.
Yeah.
No matter what you think. But that's it for this episode. So we will catch you guys next week with another one. I hope you all have a great week. And don't forget to 5-star review us if you haven't already. And head over to our Instagram page and let us know what you thought, who you think it is, or just what you think about this case, because there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But yeah. Do you want to sign them out, Phil?
Tell me next week.
Bye, darlings.